Good evening, Vandana. How are you tonight?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much for accepting the Peace Prize here in Calgary. We're looking to see if you have any comments on the food sovereignty or perhaps food security of Alberta or even Calgary as a whole. It's been questioned here if we would have the resources locally to sustain everyone who lives here if, say, the trucks stop running, if there's no one delivering food to Safeway, if we literally have the ability to grow and feed here locally.
Well, I don't think there's any part of this beautiful planet that says I will not give you food. People have farmed everywhere. Canada started out as a farming country, the United States started out as a farming country, and the farming systems might be different from the tropics, but it's still possible to grow food. And of course, Calgary is on a high, like India, you know, sort of these are places where the so-called growth economy, driven by non-renewable fossil fuels, is rushing along as if it'll never end. And other parts of the world that were based on the addiction have fallen apart. And it's time to think again. And I think for any shift in the economic system, food has to be the beginning, because nothing is more intimate than food. Everyone needs it. And because everyone needs it, we must then make sure it grows sustainably, it grows as close to eating as possible, because that's the only way you can guarantee quality, that's the only way you can guarantee fairness. And for anyone who thinks food sovereignty is obsolete just because Calgary is the oil capital, has forgotten what long-term society's needs are.
Perhaps you would have some commentary on the trend that we're seeing here in Canada, where a lot of the farmers, their properties are being purchased up by large companies, and the sons and daughters are not going into the field of practice. They're going to university and winding up going up north to the tar sands projects. So it's this whole generational gap. No longer interested in producing food locally, they would rather the companies do it.
The idea that farmers can be removed from the land is probably the most cruel, current, dominant idea of our times. Because after all, we will need the farmers. It's only when they are energy slaves doing the work for us that you can get rid of the caring hand and the loving heart of a farmer who's related to the land and to the soil and to the produce. Because agriculture at the small farm level has been deliberately undermined by distortions, $400 billion subsidies at the OECD level, inputs too costly for any farmer to afford, and if there weren't these subsidies, the system would totally collapse.
Absolutely.
But the signal being sent to every farmer is, it's not worth farming. And the economics has been so twisted, so manipulated, so distorted, that it is true farmers in a crisis. Farmers are leaving the land. In India, farmers are committing suicide because of this terrible, tragic imposition of an unviable, unsustainable, unjust model of farming. Now, when you're sending that signal, you're also sending a signal to the next generation. It's not worth being here. But no one is telling them the signal, and after the tar sands, what? You know, the very idea of food sovereignty means recognizing your capacity to be a source of your own food, having the freedom to do it, and the access to everything that makes it happen, whether it be the land, the seed, or it be a market that allows what you grow to be able to be sold. And I think we'll have to be very, very innovative in terms of rebuilding a food system that works for the earth and people. And at this point, all states, all governments are built into this thing of food is about commodities, it's for profit, let the world starve, and we will do a little bit of crumb giving to the poor. Now, if the subsidies that go to subsidizing bad food were redirected to generating employment in the production of good food, you wouldn't have any unemployed.
Oh, absolutely.
You wouldn't have anyone who is depending on someone else to bring them food. So I think the main issue is the current system that pretends to feed the world is just stealing.
Yeah.
It's stealing from the earth, it's stealing from people, it's stealing our taxes, and it's stealing our health. It's stealing work, it's stealing employment. And we can return all of that to the rightful place by making sure our democracy deepens, on the one hand, to a democracy that recognizes that food is vital and practices democracy in the area of food, which means every day, 3 times a day, every time we eat. And secondly, I do believe we need a new deepening of democracy to be inclusive of economic democracy, because you can't have the public being pushed on the one hand to unemployment and on the other hand generating the taxes to subsidize an unviable system. Look at nuclear. I mean, they're pushing nuclear now, but nuclear wouldn't exist without public subsidies.
No, most certainly would not.
You know, so I really feel, you know, we need to address the democratic issues around how is the natural wealth of this planet distributed, how it's controlled, how is the economic wealth generated by people's work used and distributed. And of course there's a lot of band-aid solutions, like Obama one day saying rescuing the banks is important because if they go under, then everything will go under. And then
Simply
3 years later, $16 trillion gone down the drain, they just got richer, people have got poorer. And he now is talking about something called the Jobs Bill.
Yeah.
But I was reading on the flight that it actually would cut down the ability of charities to work. What's basically being done is what I call nature's economy is being undermined. It's like building the roof of this house by pulling out the rocks that support it in the foundation. And of course you feel very happy, but tomorrow it collapses. And pulling out the vibrance that makes people relate to each other, find meaning in life, find meaning in farming. And that's part of the contemporary crisis, that meaning has been taken out of our lives. And there's an attempt to make money the value of all meaning, but it isn't. It is just a measure of exchange, but increasingly it's becoming a measure of false exchange. Look at the Wall Street collapse. Derivatives, collateral debt obligations, none of these were reliable measures of what's really going on in the world. And we can't build an economy on bubbles like that. There has been a 20-year window of the very wrong idea of privatization, privatizing rivers and waters, privatizing the seed and biodiversity. And I would even say privatizing of mineral wealth, because mineral wealth belongs to society at large. I mean, look at Norway. Norway decided that its oil money would belong to the public.
Yes.
And they've committed themselves to paying pensions. It's called the pension fund, over years and generations. And they're building a social security out of treating oil as a public good.
Absolutely.
So that's one, because then you have two advantages.
Yes.
One is everyone has a stake and everyone decides how much should you take. Should you squeeze the last drop of oil out of the tar sands? And the second thing is that what is available to you as your common right doesn't become a commodity you have to buy. Look at what people are spending on water. Look at what farmers in India are spending on seed. That's the basis of the farm suicides. The debt caused by high cost of patented seed. This is a genocidal structure. And if you actually just add the numbers, the number of children dying of hunger, the number of people without water,
It's legitimately genocide.
it is a very big number. This is the real war. That's why my talk tomorrow for the Calgary Peace Prize will be making peace with the earth.